Welcome back. Monday morning, super early, and by that I mean it's like 7:30 and I've been up for like 3.5 hours already. It's what happens when you wake up early on your day off. I get to get a good thing, some chunks done on some other stuff that I was working on. I looked over there to look at my Pokemon game, and the DS is charging. So anyway, I was making progress towards a few different things, and I have a visitor who heard me talking and came down to see what's going on. Hi. So, Monday morning, the weather has been not ideal for most of the things that I want to do. We got a couple inches of snow in the middle of the week that are still hanging around because it has just been super cold and windy. Come here. Here. You can sit. I was talking about the weather. It has been cold, it has been snowy, it has been very windy, which is the main thing. I wouldn't mind going out in the snow, besides the fact that it's very noisy when I walk. I could go hunker down in a place and that wouldn't be too bad. The main thing is the fact that the wind was sustained 40 mile an hour with gusts up to like 70 for most of the weekend. And even today, it's dying down, but it's still pretty windy, so it's just not going to happen this weekend, which means that I was able to get a lot of other things done. Today, I decided one of my goals for today would be doing some research, which is why you see all the books around the table. And a clean cut here because the heat just kicked on, and I'm down here where the heater is. So I'll have to do different audio to try to block that out and see if I can noise reduce that down to the point where it's not annoying. I don't really want to stop because I've already started working on stuff. So, what I was talking about recently, and it just got louder. The last weekend I went out, 2 weekends ago at this point, I did something different where I went out one day and focused on a different thing each day, and that was really useful. And I decided if that's what I'm going to be doing, is trying to focus on different aspects of it, and that helps me branch out in the technology wise, I should focus on a few different wildlife subjects as well. And something that came to me, and I talked about it in the last few videos, was looking up researching their habitats and things like that. And so going further than that, my goal today is to pick a couple birds that I can specifically see just here. Wildlife in general, I would like to. A moose would be really cool. I think I could go up north and see one of those without too far. Elk should be in the area. I feel like I saw one once because it was much bigger than a deer, but didn't get it on video because I was driving. So if I pick a couple birds, I want to specifically try to narrow down my focus to things that I can specifically see while I'm here. Because although I like living here so far with that kind of stuff, probably won't be here forever. We'll see. And either way, I travel for other things. The purpose of it was what would be something easy enough to see while I'm here, just to like get it started as a focus. So I've looked up so far 2. I'd like to go for another one because one of them is only here in the summer. It would be cool if I had like three year-round birds and then a few others of and this is when I can see them at this time, so I can take my focus for that. One of them is the sage grouse, the greater sage grouse. I found a spot that they being the National Bird Service, one of the official government programs that protects birds and things like that. They were talking about the sage grouse, and one of the things is how they do their dance, their mating ritual, the dance, the lek, and how they need a clear area, and they've identified a few spots, and their one wasn't too far from here. And I went out there once or twice to try to see it. No, I went out there once to get an idea of what was going to happen, and then I was going to go back, and I got food poisoning. I got sick. Something happened. I didn't make it out on the day that I planned to do it, and then by the time the weather we had more snow coming, and I just didn't make it out there last year the way I wanted to. But that should be something. Oh, I'm going to have to vacuum the amount of cat hair. That should be something that I can see in this area. There have been sightings. That's kind of what I've identified. I looked through the book. I've picked two so far. The burrowing owl. I saw a clip the other day of some burrowing owls by the side of the road, and I went, well, those are super cute and neat. I'd like to see if I can find those because those are in the area, and they're just here in summer. So that's one of the ones that's kind of a seasonal. During the summer, I'm going to make an effort to try to find them. The greater sage grouse are here year round. I don't know where they are in the winter, probably the same places. I just haven't been able to find anything. I also haven't gone out specifically looking for those areas. The places I've gone to in the winter so far have been more like going to see trees. Well, you can't do that because you'll rub on my mic. What are we doing? Where are we going? You gonna get down? You just want to rub on the desk now? You're gonna hit the mic. So, after identifying the bird, looking and seeing what's in the area, like I said, I've only done the two so far, but so far it's been look it up, try to figure out where they are, research anything about them. I've got 4 different bird books here that I look at for various purposes and reasons, just to kind of cross-reference and see what's going on. I've got a few identifying guides. This is an older book, so the information isn't quite up to date, but I do like this one for a few different reasons. Get down. Now I'm covered in cat hair. Of course. Like I said, I was talking about it. Book. The other one that I really like, this was a really good book. I remember specifically having this book as a child. I think my grandmother gave it to me. It's an encyclopedia, specifically. Audubon Society. That might be who I was talking about before, who protects the wildlife. Maybe it's just the state, local, national. I'll have to look up. I've forgotten the name of them. But anyway, the point is, I look at them and I try to research a few different things. Like, for example, burrowing owls. They're flat open areas, prairie grasslands, and around prairie dog towns, which I forgot that's what they're so called. Communities of prairie dogs are called prairie dog towns. And they actually go and nest in abandoned prairie dog burrows. And that's why they're burrowing owls. They go to burrows. Along with a bunch of other, I looked it up, there's like 3 or 4 different types of animals that they'll go and take over a burrow. Then they fly south, like Mexico south for the winter. Come back up. Usually they go back to the same burrow and then they just do remodeling, as they said it, where they like use their beaks and wings and things like that to kind of flush it back out so that then they can lay their eggs. So that should be no reason why I wouldn't be able to find those. I've seen prairie dogs. I have a couple of areas where I know side of the road on the major highway where people do 80 miles an hour, where the speed limit is 80 miles an hour and idiots do even more than that, is not really where I want to go set up with a camera. But I can find other areas. I'll start working on that. And they have been spotted here within the last 10 years. That's really a good thing, and that's where I was leading to with the sage grouse. I started looking up, and there are apps. I specifically have one eBird. I've been looking on that one. On my phone is not the most ideal to try to search it, so I pulled up on the computer for the first time, and man, it's much easier as a desktop application, which, as I've been learning software, yeah, I imagine so. It's probably way easier to program for something like that. But anyway, they have, within the last year, sage grouse have been spotted in the area, not too far from here, which is great. That gives me ideas of where to go if other people are finding them and willing to share where they're finding them. That's what I did once, was I drove out to a place, but I couldn't get to it because of a private road, so it didn't really help me there. But if I can find other areas that aren't on private roads that I can go to, I should be able to narrow that down. So to kind of give an overview, that's what I'm doing. I'm just looking up. I'll record things throughout the day. I want to spend a couple hours doing this at the very least to try to narrow down a couple of topics and then make those specific goals for 2022. That is kind of what everything I've been doing and building and working towards, is making specific goals so that I can set, here's my larger plan, is to do this as a profession. How do I get there? And then work backwards from there. So coming up with certain steps and goals are what I'm going to do. Something that would be, that if it's something local to the area, I don't know how many people in this area come to the plains, probably people travel, but are going to take high-end cinematography equipment out to find this wildlife, to just record absolutely anything I can get. but more specifically, it would be great to find like, interesting patterns. Like if I could record a lek, that would. I've not seen that. I haven't looked for a documentary. I'm sure it's been documented before, obviously, because they talk about it so far. I don't know if it's been documented in 4K 60 frames per second and then made available on YouTube, something along those lines. The point of the matter is it's something that can help me narrow down what I want to do. I'm very interested in birds. I would love to learn their behavior, and I would love to see that. That's kind of what I've started doing as far as reading everything that I can. I'm going to continue reading here. What made me stop to get out the camera was I wrote something down. It was very interesting. In the encyclopedia here, they talked about the grouse. Members of the grouse family grow snowshoes in the fall and early winter in adaptation to their northern environment. There's a word that I'm not sure how to pronounce here. Let me see if they pronounce it somewhere else. They're good about giving the Latin origin of the name and how to pronounce it, but not so much another one. So let's see. Ptarmigans. Now, PT, pterodactyl. So this would be a ptarmigan. Ptarmigan. These are a dense mat of stiff feathers on the toes and on other. What? These are a dense mat of stiff feathers on the toes, and on other grouse, a row of pectinations, 2 to 3 millimeters long on either side of the toes. More southernly, atwaters, a subspecies, only have slightly developed snowshoes. So basically they grow things on their feet so that they can still walk around in the winter. That's fascinating. I had no idea. I've never actually managed to see one of these in real life. I've only seen the images that I can find here in my books. But they look super cool. And that's the only reference in 4 books, which this is just what I happen to be able to afford when I could buy books. Excuse me. When I started this, the only one I bought was the 6th edition of the National Geographic Field Guides to Birds because it was on sale for $10. And I needed something to start identifying to help me go through when I started doing that, which is another goal that I have, is to identify a bunch of just being able to capture in some way still photography or another one. Anyway, I'm going to continue reading this, stop recording, and I will continue recording when I have more interesting facts to share. Okay, I found another one that I want to try to see. It is definitely in this area along with many other areas, and it's fairly common because they're well hunted. The ring-necked pheasant. I've never seen one. I might have seen one, but it was not alive. I'm trying to remember if there was one mounted in a house. Anyway, I did not realize, I've learned several things already just within reading the last few minutes. They were native to Asia and then introduced here in the 1800s. It wasn't in this book that talked about it. It was in this book. It was around page 60-something. 62? No. The ring-necked pheasants. Apparently, Benjamin Franklin's son-in-law was the first person to try and establish pheasants in America in the 1760 experiment at his New Jersey plantation, which failed. In 1881, Judge O.N. Denny, the U.S. Consul General in Shanghai, China, sent 30 birds back home to Oregon's Willamette Valley, where they flourished with such ease that he soon supplemented them with a second stock. By the early 1890s, pheasants had also become established at the Atlantic coast, first at Rutherford's Stuyvesant's estate in New Jersey and later in Massachusetts. Anyway, they're South Dakota's state bird, which I'm not far from South Dakota, so shouldn't be hard to travel over there if I can't find any here. I'm going down the steps of things here. I learned that they make nests on the ground, which is interesting because what I didn't realize, and although I've seen turkeys, so I don't really want to put wild turkeys as a bird that I specifically want to see as a goal, but I do want to. I know that there are turkeys living in town and on the mountain that's not too far away. I've seen them there before several times. So what I want to see specifically with the turkeys, jumping subjects, they sleep in trees. And I know that they can jump and they can kind of fly a little bit, or hover to get up somewhere. They don't typically take off and fly, which didn't realize that the sage grouse definitely fly, and they're a strong, swift flyer. And there goes the heater again. So turkeys will go up into trees at night. So mountain's not very far away. I know turkeys live there. I've actually seen a turkey jump before, or I've seen the evidence of it after. We had some just out front, and I happened to be, it triggered the security camera, and I looked and I was like, oh, well, there's some turkeys out there. And one of them jumped up onto my neighbor's car, and I got a picture of it like up on top of the car. Which is pretty funny. So I'd like to get that, especially in slow motion. I would love to see them like jump and spread their wings and everything to get up onto a branch, so I could start going up to the mountain at night, depending on when it is, and start looking for turkeys, see if I can find them early enough where I just kind of keep my distance and follow until they settle down for the night. At a huge distance, but with my long lens. Hopefully that shouldn't be too much of a problem. That'll have to be very careful, because I don't want to disturb them, and I don't want to keep them from going up into their branches for nighttime. Anyway, I've identified that is a goal that I will be writing down, is to see that. But to see the ring-necked pheasants, I started looking up the different areas that they are, and they eat a lot of grains, is what I was reading here in the encyclopedia. It's like they eat mostly plant foods, largely waste corn, wheat, barley, oats, buckwheat, also weed seeds, especially ragweed, burdocks, etc., from cultivated in old fields. They eat acorns, pine seeds, wild berries, goes on and on. They do eat some bugs, snails, mice, things like that. The ring-necked pheasants tells me if they're there, I might be able to go travel around farmland, which is most definitely private property, because that's what people are doing there. But if I could see them from the road or something like that without trespassing, I would be able to hopefully see something like that. I think that would be an easy enough one to find. My next step is to look up to see if there have been any local sightings, checking on the internet for the eBird, to see if anyone has seen one and where they would be, so I know about how far I would have to travel to go to an area where people have seen them before. So that is a third one. They are year-round, and they are plentiful from what I can find, so hopefully that one won't be too bad. I will continue looking. Let's look up some data on the computer. Okay, I've identified another one that is very common, and I should be able to find, with a very interesting mating ritual: the horned lark. This one came from, because I've just kind of been flipping around, eBird. I decided to go on there instead and go by region and states, and all the way down to, that's the most commonly seen, I think. I think that's the one that they report the most, and yeah, it's all over, so I should not have trouble finding these. They apparently, especially in the winter, are a lot easier to find, because they flock together into the numbers, the hundreds. Some books, the older one, and again, this book came from the Bradley Christmas. Somebody wrote on the inside of it. I bought a used copy. Copyright was 1990. This book is as old as I am and a little bit older. So the information there is not nearly as up to date on something like that. They talk about into the millions, and so does this encyclopedia, this was published. Well, the original copyright was 1956, leading all the way up to 1980. This edition was published in this book was made in 1991. This book is as old as I am. So I don't have the most up-to-date information on some of this stuff, and things definitely change. There's plenty in these newer ones where they call them old world, whereas like they were identified before as this and thought of for such a long time as a certain thing, and then eventually scientists came along and went, actually, that's slightly different. It's this now. So there are like old world birds that they were like, that's not actually a different species of bird. It's just different coloring of the same type of, I don't know how they figured that out. not an ornithologist, unfortunately. But anyway, the horned lark is a very interesting, should be common enough for me to find, it has a very interesting mating ritual in which the male soars up to flights of up to 800 feet in the air and then circles for several minutes while singing a song before just suddenly tucking its wings and dive bombing all the way back down to the ground. I would love to get that on video. So I'm going to start looking for that. I'm going to find some areas. I need to go look and see. I actually just looked up on a greater scale of the entire state of Wyoming that this is one of the most common ones found, but they look really cool. They've got kind of a brown body with some black and yellow to the face area, and then they've got almost, I can't think of any other way to describe them besides eyebrows. I bet this actually describes them in a horns, feather tufts on the head, black but not always noticeable. They come up and off of the head, which I've never seen on a bird before, so that's super interesting, and I'd like to find that. I'm going to look and see if there have been any local sightings. That's another thing I need to notice, but this has definitely made the list of ones that I will be trying to find in the coming year. That puts me up to 4 so far. Let's see if I can find out if they've been spotted around here. Okay, what? Picked another one. I'm trying to do a variety of different types as well. Bigger things like that, and then smaller birds, some common, some uncommon, just... Seriously. I've stopped to record 3 or 4 times now, and the heat only kicks on when I start recording. It's been silent for 20 or 30 minutes, and it just... the timing of it. The cedar waxwing. Beautiful bird. I've not seen one before. They're apparently very common in this area. They've been spotted locally here in town recently in large enough numbers. I think I could theoretically see them. They eat a lot of berries. Researching through all of the different forms, every book here, they talk about a lot of berries. They apparently also will gorge themselves to the point where they can scarcely fly. They eat so much. Then they'll get drunk on overripe fruit and drop to the ground to drink from rain puddles or melted snow. They have an extremely interesting behavior that I definitely want to capture on video. I think that would be a fantastic moment. They will all get onto a branch with berries, and they will sit in a row, and they will pass it back and forth. And they've got, you know, the image, the illustrations here show like 4 in a row, where one will pick the berry and pass it to the next one, who passes it to the next one, who passes, and then it goes back and forth until one of them eats it, and then they grab another one. They also, in the encyclopedia, they mentioned in courtship, a pair may pass flower petals or an insect back and forth. So that's amazing. Never heard of anything like that, never seen that. I've definitely seen images of these online, and they're always near berries. That's people will set up if they have trees that produce berries in their backyard. That gives me an idea. I wonder if anyone would be willing to let me go set up in their backyard. I don't have a backyard. I don't have trees that produce berries, but if they do, I wonder if anyone would be willing to let me go do that and set up and just film the birds in their backyard. Because I don't know how else I would see these. And in that way, I would have to find a place where I could go to set up a camera to where there would be a tree with berries. The state park would probably be good enough. Or like where I was last week when I saw the northern flicker eating berries out of a tree. Something like that. They weren't bright red berries or anything. They were some kind of... They were either berries or nuts, but I assume they were berries. They definitely weren't nuts. I think they were berries of some kind. That's another thing I want to research on another day is the different types of food trees, more plant life, to figure out what the names of the trees are so I can be more knowledgeable about it. Okay, that makes 5. I think that's a good enough stopping point for today. It's been several hours of research as it is. That gives me a few places that I can add to the maps for me to visit in the coming time frame. Gives me plenty of things to start looking up. I've been reading books at night. I always have been when I fall asleep. And I started branching out instead of buying books to reading ones that are in the public domain. And I found a section that had things on birds, and I don't know what those are like. I think I talked about in a video recently that I was thinking more about an audiobook that I was listening to from a man 100 years ago or something like that, who very much was into birds and would write about them and wrote a beautiful book about it, and then someone narrated it, and they also went and took field recordings of the birds and put them in. So when he's talking about X bird, you can hear the calls of that. I need to see if I can find that. I have not looked. It was on Spotify, but I have stopped using Spotify and switched over to Amazon Music just because they actually have FLAC recordings. I definitely feel like I've talked about this recently. I just don't remember if I was talking to the camera about it or talking to people about it. But anyway, this has given me a good number of things to start looking for, to start researching and to make goals. This is 5 different birds. The burrowing owl, which I should be able to find in prairie dog towns, which is around. The greater sage grouse, which again, I read an article, an actual magazine article from a magazine that I got last year of people going and watching the lek, scientists going and actually observing, ornithologists, and they were up north in Cody, Wyoming, which is a good ways away, but if I can find out where that is, I might try to see that this year. I really would like to make it out there here in the coming spring. I didn't last year, but maybe this year. The ring-necked pheasant should hopefully be fairly common. It looks to be. I looked it up, and they're plentiful to the west, about 2 hours. I didn't see any specific. It was like checking the map of locations. It was just all over one specific area. The horned lark is apparently all over. I just have not managed to see one yet. And again, with the cedar waxwing, I start looking for trees that have berries and start learning the names of those. So I've written, those are the 5. I'm going to see gather all the data that I can on them and start coming up with plans to try and see those this coming year. 5 birds anyway. I want to pick a couple other wildlife general things that I want to see, and then I started making a list of moments that I want to capture on video. Several of them we've already talked about, like the sage grouse lek, the horned lark, their mating ritual. Going to write down the waxwing, berry passing. And then another one, this has been just a goal for a really long time, ever since I thought about it. I just want to go capture footage of the salmon jumping upstream and bear catching them out of the air. That happens in Alaska, which is a good ways away, but not impossible to do or to see. Just going to take a fair bit of planning. That's several days driving up there. I would not fly just because of all of my equipment. I don't want to try to, at this point in time, try to pack everything up and seal it up and trust airlines with it. I would rather put everything in the car and take a drive out there, which would be a couple days, which means I need a passport to get through Canada. So that was a goal that I made at the beginning of this year, 2021, going, all right, things are starting to get better COVID-wise. I think I'll be able to travel. It doesn't seem like a waste currently. And then we hit around summer and things start getting worse again. So I've just put that on the back burner for right now. I will get a passport in the coming year or two. And I will make that trip. I do want to do that at some point. I also would like to go into Canada and see puffins, but that's not one I want to try to track as a goal, because that's going to require travel and probably experts. I have to figure out how I can find people who go and do that kind of thing and find them already so that I can tag along. It would be great if I could find a mentor, someone who already does this kind of thing, or ornithologists. If I could find people who are ornithologists who are just interested in going out and viewing the birds as it is, and they go, okay, as long as you're quiet and, able to keep up with that kind of thing, come along and bring your camera. That's what I would love to do. And then I could ask them questions and go, what is this behavior? And they would have more scientific terms and knowledge for it. So overall, very good. Couple hours of research. I'm really glad I did this and started looking that kind of stuff up. It makes me really want to get back out there. I want to write down that one of my goals is to buy binoculars, or ask for some for Christmas maybe. That would be a good idea. I just got asked yesterday if I had a Christmas list for this year, which I don't, because I don't have any kind of money to spend on other people, so I didn't even think about making something for myself. But anyway, and anyhow, and that's what it is. I'm going to put away all my books here that I've got, continue making notes into the planner that I have, where I put all of the dream goals and things like that. I've got one specifically laid out for wildlife, and now I actually have some things to write into that section instead of just do it, which is what it's been. And that's kind of where I get into like, wishy-washy, like I could go out or I could not. Now I have specific times that I need to go see these things and reasons to go and where to find specific things. I think having that focus will really help me get out there and do that. Yes. Okay. Well, there we go. That's everything that I wanted to do today specifically for wildlife. I've got a bunch of cleaning and cooking and things like that to do, and play some games and start formulating plans on when I'm going to be able to get out and what I'm going to go see. Yes, I know. You are loud. I've discovered some interesting but frustrating features on my phone. There is a pro video mode, which allows me to actually go in and change settings such as the ISO or the shutter speed, depth of field, etc. And it shows me, more importantly, what I've really wanted is the ability to see a level, a meter for my audio, so that as I'm talking, it's showing me what level it's currently at, so I know when I'm blowing it out. One of the things I had problems with was I was not quite blowing it out, but it was just louder, and I had to take everything down in my last couple edits from where I was using a wireless mic. It's a whole thing. I can adjust that, but I don't know about it because there's no level audio. There's no meter for the audio level. There is in the Pro mode, and the Pro mode also has something very interesting, which is the ultra wide angle that you're seeing right now, which is what I've wanted for a lot of different reasons. A super wide angle is useful on a lot of things. It only works on the back camera. So currently, I can't see the audio level. I can't see the camera to make sure I'm in shot or focus or anything like that. I can only see the back of the camera. And I haven't figured out a way to get around this, but I might just start hoping for the best when I do this and start looking at the back of the camera instead of the front, because apparently there's no way to do it with the front-facing camera. Which is, the cool part is that I can get the features that I want. The bad part is that it's annoying. So I tried searching for about a half an hour the other night through the App Store on everything I could possibly find that I'm not going to pay money for to use the features of the phone that should already exist in the way that I want. Like, it's already there. There's no reason why I can't just turn on an option. There shouldn't be any reason why I couldn't just turn on an option on the frontward-facing camera. If they're not going to put the frontward-facing camera on the Pro mode, which, fine, okay, then why can't I put an audio meter on my normal one? Or further complications, which is the fact that I can't use most of the other modes because they only have 4K 60 locked to their app because it has to record to the internal storage. I cannot record it to an SD card, which is irritating, but fine. If they're going to do that with that kind of thing, why can't I get, like, I can't mix around. The whole thing is just obnoxious, and there's a reason why typically I would rather use like a full camera, but to get something small enough to transport and light enough to bring with me where I can still be using other things. I want something light enough. I've talked about this many times. I don't really need to cover it again. A full camera would have the ability to see those kind of things, but this is the upside of a smaller thing. Something like that is my phone. But anyway, it's a Monday morning. Let's give it a second so I can do a clean cut, because I'll probably put this at the beginning.